Living is a large organization of professionals who band their resources together to deliver a broad array of goods and services to help communities become centers for successful aging. And to do so, we have to be able to consult with individual professionals all the way from the leadership in organizations all the way down to the person who drives the limo to the airport and back. And that's really the model of Masterpiece Living, is that we go in and try to allow cultures to grow in a way that everything that's done in the community supports the residents' mission to live long and well. And what we know is that the human potential has sort of a finite range. You know, we're born, we grow into our 20s and 30s, and we seem to be on cruise control, and then things begin to happen to us. The only problem is that does happen 30, 40, 50, 60 years before we die. And so the typical pattern in America is that people live a long time with chronic conditions and don't live very well, and they live with pain and they live with high medical care costs. What we've been able to do in Masterpiece Living is to show people a way to manage their lifestyle and to manage their total environments in such a way that we minimize the impact of those conditions and allow people to function more fully regardless of where they are in their life cycle. And if they don't happen to have some of those disease processes, we've been able to show, working in our communities across the United States, how they can continue to improve their functionality up until late in life. We're just now able to, as not only Masterpiece Living as an organization, but I think the larger field of aging and gerontological services, to say we now have the science to know what really works. And not only what works in a laboratory setting, but what works in a community setting, what works where people really live. And we hadn't known that before. I mean, the original research that launched Masterpiece Living as a company was called the Successful Aging Studies, funded by the MacArthur Foundation. And that research said clearly that the science tells us we can help people live longer, better. And so we ultimately can live long, well, and die short. But nobody had proved that. One of the things that Masterpiece Living has worked on over the last 7 years is develop the research base to show that we can apply that science in a community setting to show people in their 80s continuing to improve in function as they age up into the late 80s and early 90s instead of lose function. And when I say function, I'm just not meaning physical function, but intellectual, social, emotional, and spiritual well-being. We can measure those things. We can change the trajectory of those things in large numbers of people in their communities. We now have the science to show that. We now have the evidence to show that. And that's the probably big message, is that this is no longer anecdotal information. This is very solid, researchable, repeatable information. Just by how we eat, in 3 months' time, we can turn on or turn off 500 genes that predict whether we're going to get cancer or heart disease. That's just controlled by our diet. The point I'm sharing is that not just genes that we're given influence our destiny. It's what we do that causes those genes to become active or inactive in our lifestyles. Leadership is literally the only reason successful aging happens in communities, because leadership does truly set the cultural tone for what goes forward. People understand and respond to leadership in all organizations. So if an executive director or a larger management team really believes something, they know everything that they do will be influenced by that belief structure. Just one concrete example. If an executive director says, successful aging is a really important part of how we function, but at every gathering, all they serve are donuts and candy, that's not supporting the message of successful aging. Now, I'm not against all donuts and candy. What I'm saying is every single thing that we do sets a tone or a parameter for our expectations. And people subconsciously respond to all of those things that we do. We're not where we need to be. What we're going to continue to do over the next 5 to 10 years is refine our measurement strategies so we get more accurate measurements of how people are progressing. We're probably going to get much better at individual coaching of people's behavioral change, because everybody likes to have reinforcements that are appropriately delivered to them. And so we're going to get better at that, and we're doing research now on how to do that and getting feedback. And I really do think over the next 5 to 10 years, as the front age of the baby boomer coming in will cause us to be much more open to the diversity of aging and the diversity of the lived environment. That will change how we measure and how we do aging-related services. So I think we're just poised to break out of a fairly traditional way to deliver services. And I think we're going to learn how to be very flexible in doing so, because we're going to have all kinds of new demands in the aging services industry. So I'm excited about that opportunity.